Kalamazoo, you fired up? That's what I like to hear. So can we just give one more huge round of applause for our union leaders, Danielle and Ryan? So I just want to know who I'm speaking to today. Let me just ask a couple questions. Who here believes in people over profit? Let me hear you. And who believes in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations? And who here knows that when we fight, we win? I must be in Kalamazoo then, huh? That's right. I am Abdul El-Sayed. People know me as Abdul. And I know, I've got a perfect name for U.S. politics. My name might be different, but so are my ideas. And so is the vision, because I'm focused on people. Let me say that again. My name might be different, but so is our vision, because we are focused on the people. And that's why we're here with a certain Senator Bernie Sanders. He knows, he understands that we need more people willing to stand up to power without fear. Different name, different kind of leader. Now look, my dad, Muhammad, he took a bet on a country, this country, back in 1978. He took a bet on an America where it shouldn't matter what your name is or how you pray or if you pray at all or where your folks come from or who you love or how you identify. He took a bet on an America that is big enough for all of us. And I was raised by my father, Muhammad, and my stepmom, Jackie, a daughter of the American Revolution from about an hour away from here in the very heart of Michigan, Gratiot County. The thing they shared in common, a love of science and engineering and using their skills to help people. Growing up in that home, I knew from a pretty young age that I probably wasn't going to be anybody's engineer. I wanted to be a doctor. And let me explain why. See, on late summer days like this, I'd often find myself in a cottage on a lake in the heart of Michigan. But that was after spending so much of my summer in Egypt. As a teenager, I'd get shipped off to Alexandria, where my father was raised in a one-bedroom apartment just a stone's throw from a fish market where his father sold vegetables. His mother, my Teta Suad, was the wisest, most intelligent person I have ever met. But she never got to go to school. She raised 6 kids in a one-bedroom apartment of 8 to whom she gave birth. 2 of them passed before their first birthdays. They were an aunt and uncle I never got to meet, siblings my father lost before he turned 5. I'd spend most of my time in Egypt with my Teta Suad, and though she never got to go to school, hers was the school of life, where she learned about the moral lessons that even the most studied folks too often fail to learn. You can imagine me walking into that apartment, my hat backwards with my American kid swagger, and she's sitting me down. Habibi, right here. You can imagine her, points to one of my cousins, that one is smarter than you. Points to the next one, I don't have to tell you, is taller and better looking. Points to a third one, nicer, kinder hearted. 4th one's more athletic. 5th one works harder than you do. By the end of it, I'm like a puddle on the floor with a hat. By the end of this, I'm like, Teta, what do I have going for me? She's like, Habib, you have the best thing of all. I was like, what's that? You get to go back to America at the end of the summer. She was teaching me about opportunity. You can imagine, with that name, people like to question my love for this country. But trust me, no one loves their country like a kid who saw what his life might have been without it. So make no mistake, I love America. I know exactly what America gave me. I got vaccinated against diseases that killed my aunt and uncle. Incredible public schools. I'm a Michigan kid, football captain, lacrosse at U of M. I even got my med school paid for by a public agency at the NIH. But I love America enough to call her to be better. On those summer trips, it'd take me 15 hours to get to Egypt. And in those 15 hours, I would travel about 10 years difference in life expectancy. But I didn't have to go 15 hours to travel that gap. I could go just 15 minutes from where I grew up in Oakland County, and I could travel the same 10-year life expectancy gap. And here's the thing. I could never explain why kids growing up just a short car ride from me, whose families had been here far longer than mine, never got those same opportunities. I became a doctor to help people. Doctors ask two questions. What's wrong and how can I help? What's wrong? Big corporations making money off illness. Our systems puts profits over people. I learned pretty early in my med school career that the answers to what was wrong had a lot less to do with all that physiology I spent all that time studying, and a lot more to do with pathologies in our politics. Do you get to breathe clean air? Do you get to drink clean water? Do you get to walk in your local community without being victimized by a neighbor or the state itself? Can you afford the groceries that have the micronutrients that will grow your brain, or just the ones that have the macronutrients that grow a belly? Can you even see a doctor in the first place without having to worry about falling into medical debt? And as I kept reflecting on these facts, I realized that my work had to be back outside a clinic and a hospital, so I followed it back out. I've worked to heal our broken system. When politicians broke Detroit's health department, I rebuilt it. They had shut down a 185-year-old health department in a city with a higher infant mortality rate than my father's native Egypt. A city where our children face threefold the probability of asthma hospitalizations and fourfold the probability of lead exposure. Shut it down. I was hired to rebuild it, and rebuild it around the well-being of kids. We realized that 30% of our kids who tested positive for vision deficits would come back testing positive again next year, meaning we knew they needed glasses and we didn't get them a pair of glasses. So we put optometrists on vans at schools so that when kids got tested, they got their full exam and we could ship them a free pair of glasses within 2 weeks. That program that we brought to the city of Detroit for the first time has since delivered 50,000 pairs of glasses across the state. And I'm never going to forget the first moment I heard about what was happening in Flint. And the immediate thing I kept thinking was that our schools and the state of our schools might mean that our kids could be exposed to the same lead we were hearing about in Flint in the place where we systematically concentrate them most of the day, most of the year. And so we had every school, daycare, and Head Start tested for lead in the water. The first 68 schools we tested, 19 of them tested positive for lead. So we got them on the path to being lead-free. And I got to work with folks like Dr. Mona, who broke the Flint water crisis, to help rewrite lead policy for our state. When a Marathon Petroleum refinery, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the entire state, wanted to raise their emissions, despite the fact that the EPA had said that there was already too much sulfur dioxide in the air, we organized. We stood up, and collectively, with the local community, we forced them to invest $10 million of their own money to reduce their emissions when they had initially applied to increase them. When kids needed glasses, we got them glasses, took on lead, made government work for people. I went on to run Wayne County's health department. We innovated, and we got to work. No family should have to go bankrupt over medical debt. In fact, medical debt shouldn't exist. So we erased it, up to $700 million for 300,000 people. When people were dying, we got Narcan onto our streets to save lives. We put free Narcan in 100 places. We took on big insurance and helped people. We did it because it was right. That's because I was taught that way. That's what I do. It's what I've done everywhere I've gone. I'm a doctor. I know how to diagnose a problem, and I know how to cure it. When I see something hurting Michiganders, hurting us, I'm going to work to fix it. Now look, I know I'm running for U.S. Senate, but I've been to the U.S. Senate before. And the last time I went to the Senate, it was to testify about the work that we were doing in Wayne County under the summons of one, Senator Bernie Sanders. Now look, I loved that job in Wayne County. I really did. And when I think about the kind of work that my teta would have been proud of, I think about that kind of work. But I'm never going to forget that day back in January. It was what, 8 months ago? Feels like 8 years ago now. I'm sitting in my office. I get a notification that the Trump administration has just frozen all federal funds. So I'm looking at line items in my budget that are frozen. The WIC program, food on the table for moms and babies, frozen. Federally qualified health centers, the last line of healthcare defense for people who don't otherwise have it, frozen. Vaccines, frozen. And just then, I get a push notification to my phone that after a long and storied career, our U.S. Senator Gary Peters is calling it a day. He's not running for re-election. And at that point, I had to ask myself, where is the fight now? Where does this fight go? And I realized that this fight had to go to the U.S. Senate. Kalamazoo, I'm going to tell you what you all already know, that in the history of our country, there has never been a president who is more dangerous than this one. He cheats, he steals, he's openly using his office to enrich his own family. Worse is how he lies to people, exploiting their pain for political win. Take, for example, that big ugly bill. He's gutting Medicaid, a move that'll destroy hospitals in local, rural, and urban communities alike, robbing millions of their health care. Why? To pass a tax cut for billionaires. And he's forcing our children and our children's children to pay for it in the form of $3.5 trillion expansion of the federal debt. And there's the way he's letting RFK Jr. run amok on the federal public health agencies. Yo, in case it's not obvious, you probably shouldn't put a guy who goes swimming in Schitt's Creek over the nation's health. You know, what they never tell you is how he got that brainworm. Here's the thing that gets me most about RFK Jr. I actually agree on a lot of the problems. I really do. Pharma is a problem. I agree. Our food system is dominated by big corporations selling us chemicals as food. I agree. Healthcare should be more affordable. I agree. But the thing about RFK Jr. is that he lies about the solutions. Vaccines are good, actually. And even though he gets some of the problems right, he's too much a coward to actually take on the corporations who created them. Don't bring me a handshake deal with pharma to bring drug prices down as some kind of victory while you abolish billions in critical research that could have helped us discover cures to different cancers. Don't just ban red dye when you know the biggest issue with our food is the lobbying of huge megacorporations. And don't tell me you're going to bring down the price of our health care when you haven't said the three most obvious words: Medicare for all. Nope. And then there's Liberation Day. I think we're like on the third version of this by now. Look, I want to be clear with you all. NAFTA was a cancer on the American economy. And I happen to think that tariffs can be helpful. Kind of like chemotherapy for cancer, but not like this. All right? Any doctor will tell you that you've got to be pretty careful with chemo. Too much at the wrong times and you'll kill the patient that you say you're trying to save. But like all things Donald Trump, his tariffs are chaotic, ham-fisted, and self-serving. Trump is not serious about protecting American manufacturing. He's serious about using us. Trump only cares about CEOs who will bend the knee for sweetheart deals while the rest of us suffer through the inflation he's making worse. So look, we've got to stand up to Donald Trump. And I'll tell you this. As a kid named Abdul, you can imagine I've met my fair share of bullies. And you can go ask them how that went. I got receipts, y'all. So, too many Democrats tell you they're fighting only to show up with a strongly worded letter. We need Democrats who have the courage to stand up to the power brokers in our own party, let alone Trump and his goons. We don't back down. We don't back down. We don't back down. With all due respect, if they go low, we don't go high. We take them to the mud and choke them out. But look, we've got to be fearless, taking on the corporations and billionaires and oligarchs without standing down, without giving an inch. It's about doing what's right every time because we work for the people. I've been at this now for about 10 years, and I've taken on big corporations, big insurance, big pharma, big everything. And I've even taken on our own party when they're wrong. Now, the billionaires will lie to us, and they'll lie about us. Let me say that again. The billionaires will lie about us to try and stop us, but it won't work. They attack anyone who wants to take on the powerful. They attack anyone who wants to fight for the people. They attack anyone who wants to change anything. Just ask Bernie. But we can stand up to their attacks together and take on the oligarchy. But Kalamazoo, I want to remind you of something. It's not just about what you fight against. It's about what you fight for. I'm getting to see all your incredible faces, and I see some familiar ones. And y'all might remember I ran for governor back in 2018. I'm grateful to all of you who supported us then. And I said something at the time, though, that folks weren't quite ready to hear, which is this. Trump himself is not the disease of our politics. Donald Trump is just the worst symptom of the disease of our politics. So what's the disease? The disease is the rigged system that allows corporations and billionaires to buy politicians to do their bidding. They collude to suppress our paycheck for the work we have to do for them and raise prices for the things we have to buy from them. It's the utilities who buy off politicians to avoid regulation while they maintain a monopoly. It's the health insurance companies who keep jacking up our premiums just to make us wait in longer lines for shorter appointments and then pay yet again for the health care we thought we already paid for. So this is a campaign to do 3 simple things, and I'm going to give you a bonus fourth. Number 1, I'm the only candidate in this race who has never touched a corporate PAC check. Never have, never will. Our values shouldn't be for sale. So I can tell you with a straight face that we've got to get money out of politics. That means we have to stand up to the Citizens United regime. We have to make it illegal for corporations to spend their money to buy politicians and dare the Supreme Court to make another bad decision that sinks us further into the political abyss. Number 2, we've got to make life easier for people, make it more affordable. We need to take on the corporations that take too much of our paychecks. We've got to put money back in our pockets. So how do you do that? That means, that's right, say it again. She said it, y'all. We've got to rebuild the Federal Trade Commission under folks like Lena Khan to bust the trust again. We got to make it easier to join or form a union like our union siblings you just heard from across any sector of our economy. And we've got to make it easier to make America the best single place to build and scale a small business in the world. And finally, number 3, in the richest, most powerful country in the world, medical debt should not exist. Healthcare must be guaranteed. So we have to get on to the work of abolishing medical debt and finally passing Medicare for all. Pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Money out of politics, money in your pocket, and Medicare for all. So I'm going to try something here, all right? When I say 1, you say money out of politics, all right? And when I say 2, you say money in your pocket. And when I say 3, you say Medicare for all. Y'all ready with me? 1, 2, 3. I love it. Now look, I gotta be honest with you all, and you know I had to talk about it. Because we live in an era where our kids' schools are crumbling and our literacy rates are tumbling. So maybe we should be using our taxpayer dollars, I don't know, to build schools for our kids rather than sending blank checks to foreign militaries to drop bombs on other kids in their schools? So let me be clear. We need an end to the genocide in Gaza. We need a ceasefire and we need a lasting peace. Now look, I know, I get it. His name's Abdul though. I know I'm not supposed to win this election. But I know that's what they've been telling you, right? It's a whisper campaign. But here's the thing. This election, it's not actually about me or my name, all right? It's not even about just one Senate seat. This election is about whether or not we together are willing to take that same bet my dad took almost 50 years ago. A bet on this country, a bet on each other. Are we willing to reach across the divides they tell us that we can't cross? Are we willing to reach across geography and race and ethnicity and faith and gender and identity to build the kind of America we all need and deserve? Are we willing to take on the powerful, to take back our government? Are we willing to take on the powerful, to take back our government from the corporations and oligarchs and billionaires? Are we willing to bet on a government of the people, by the people, and for the people? This movement is about us. This movement is about the people. This is about big ideals and bigger ideas. This is about taking on the powerful without fear and doing what's right. So when they tell me, Abdul, you can't win, I say, you know what? It ain't about me. See, I'm no stranger to public service in Michigan. I've been at this for 10 years now. And in the last 4 months alone, I've been across 45 different cities, done over 100 roundtables and town halls and meet and greets. I've been in your union halls, your coffee shops, your living rooms, and your ice cream parlors. I particularly enjoyed the ice cream parlors. And no matter where I go, folks tell me the same thing. It just shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard to afford that second gallon of milk or that second carton of eggs. It shouldn't be this hard to work the same job tomorrow that I worked yesterday and know it's going to be there for me tomorrow. It shouldn't be this hard to ever dream of owning a home if you're under 40 or keep my home if I'm over 65. It should not be this hard to see a doctor or know you're not going to fall into medical debt if you do. It just shouldn't be this hard. So when they tell you I can't win, don't look at me. Look at each other. Look at each other. Look at all of us, people from all over the state who've spent far too long being locked out of our own politics. They've locked us out by keeping us apart, by telling us that we can't reach across our divides, that we cannot see eye to eye with people who may look or pray or think differently than we do. But all of us who've got to go to work again on Monday know that when that alarm strikes, it's calling us to the same toil. And it shouldn't be this hard to afford the basic means of a dignified life when we come home. In Kalamazoo, we can't have nice things, all right? But only together. So here now, I'm calling on all of us to reach together for those things, to hold each other in the work and in the toil, to believe in the kind of America we can build together, to believe in each other. If we do that, not only will we win this race, Kalamazoo, but we'll win the future we deserve. I'm Abdul El-Sayed, and I'm running for U.S. Senate because it shouldn't be this hard, and together it doesn't have to be. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are too kind, Kalamazoo. You're too kind. Thank you. Now look, before I bring the OG on himself, I want to try something with you all, okay? You know how in politics, candidates always have to say, I'm the candidate and I approve this message? We're going to play around with that, all right? You all want to help me? All right. When I say one, what are you going to say? When I say two, what are you going to say? And when I say three, what are you going to say? All right. You ready? One. I'm Abdul El-Sayed and I approve this message. Ready? 2. I'm Abdul El-Sayed, and I approve this message. 3. I'm Abdul El-Sayed, and I wrote the book and approve this message. We're going to do one more. I'm not going to say numbers. I'm just going to use my hands. Y'all ready? I'm Abdul El-Sayed, and I approve this message. All right, y'all. I want to tell you, I got the opportunity to meet the gentleman you're about to hear from back in 2018. He'd been somebody I looked up to for such a long time because of his clarity and consistency and honesty. And I remember just before we did a rally very similar to this one, I asked him what his advice for me was. He said, Abdul, you don't strike me as a very good liar. I was like, I'm not. He's like, good. In this business, you're either very good at lying or withholding the truth, or very good at telling it. And this is a man who's been telling the truth now for longer than I've been alive. He's been telling the truth from a Senate seat. He's been telling the truth from his mayorship in Burlington, Vermont. He's been telling the truth since he was a student activist on campus. He's been telling the truth. And I so wish that more people would have listened to that truth. Bernie would have won, y'all. But I couldn't ask for a better mentor, a better friend, and a better leader in politics. And honestly, I cannot wait to serve alongside a living legend. So my friends, Kalamazoo, let's bring up the OG himself, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Kalamazoo. See, the reason, no. Now, I am in the Senate. No, should be Abdul. We need him in the Senate now. See, the truth is, I love you too. Truth is, I'm here for a very selfish reason, all right? I get lonely in the U.S. Senate. I need some friends. You're going to help me out? I need some voices in the Senate who are going to stand up for working class people, for economic justice, for racial justice, for social justice. We need Abdul El-Sayed in the Senate. What I want to do this evening, in addition to urging you to elect Abdul, is to beg of you in this unprecedented and difficult moment in American history to go outside of your comfort zone and to think outside of the box. If there was ever a time in the modern history of this country when the American people had to stand up and take on, and I'll give you some good news there. I've been all over this country, and what I can tell you, in rural areas and in urban areas, the American people will not tolerate oligarchy, will not tolerate authoritarianism, will not tolerate kleptocracy, and will not tolerate the continued war against the working class of this country. So what I want to do this evening is just talk a little bit about what you're not going to see on your corporately owned TV networks or in your corporately owned United States Congress. So let's talk about reality. Let's talk about what's going on in the lives of working people in Michigan, in Vermont, and all over this country. And here is the truth, not a pleasant truth, but it's a truth that the establishment does not want to be discussed, which is precisely why we have got to discuss it. In America today, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in the history of the United States of America. And it is an obscene level of inequality. And what I'm going to tell you, one of the things that the establishment does and what media does and what the culture that the oligarchs create does is they tell us what we should be outraged at and what we should accept or think it's not a big deal, right? Well, I happen to think that it is a very big deal, that it is a moral and economic outrage that one person in this country, Mr. Musk, owns more wealth than the bottom 52% of American households. That is an obscenity. That is not what this country is supposed to be about. But it's not just Mr. Musk. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 93%. You got CEOs of large corporations making over 350 times what their workers are making. So, in other words, point number one, today, the 1%, the people on top, have never, ever had it so good. That's reality number one. Number two, it's not just that we're looking at massive income and wealth inequality. These guys have enormous economic power. Power. What does that mean? It means that in sector after sector of our economy, whether it is agriculture, whether it's financial services, whether it's transportation, you name it, a handful of giant corporations control that sector and determine the prices that you pay. And if you think one of the amazing things, you can go Google it, is that many of these large corporations that you're familiar with, whether it's Apple or General Motors or whatever it may be, they are themselves owned by entities larger than them. So you got a handful of gigantic Wall Street firms like Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, that are the major stockholders in over 95% of American corporations. A handful of major Wall Street firms have enormous power over the economy. But it's not just, wait a minute, it's not just income and wealth inequality. It's not just concentration of ownership that they have. They also own what you see, hear, and read. You got 6 major international media conglomerates that control what 90% of the people see, hear, and read. And it's not just the traditional media, the ABC, CBS, etc. It is the internet as well. Look who owns Look who owns Twitter, X, what used to be Twitter. That's Mr. Musk. Who owns Meta? That's Mr. Zuckerberg. Who owns the Washington Post? That is Mr. Bezos. And Mr. Ellison, one of the wealthiest people in the world right now, recently took over Paramount, which owns CBS. So these guys have enormous media power. And every day you are seeing their perspective. They are discussing the issues they think are important, not discussing the issues that may be important to your life. But it's not just income and wealth inequality, concentration of ownership, and the fact that they own the media. They also own a corrupt campaign finance system. And I know Abdul was just talking about it, but there is no political issue of greater importance than the need to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. So let me give you just a couple of examples of how Citizens United and big money is undermining American democracy. Elon Musk spent $270 million to help elect Donald Trump to become president. And his reward was that for a period of time he was allowed to be the most important person in the United States government. And he was allowed to implement his right-wing extremist ideology, which meant firing tens of thousands of federal employees, including scientists who are doing important work trying to understand disease, proposing to fire over 80,000 employees at the Veterans Administration, a real way to say thank you to the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend us, firing thousands of workers at the Social Security Administration, breaking the federal unions. All right? So if any of you want to become an important person in government, all you have to do is find a candidate, raise $270 million, and you're in business. But between you and me, I don't think that that is what democracy is supposed to be about. And I'll give you another example. As part of his love of the oligarchy, Donald Trump and his Republican friends gave us the so-called Big, Beautiful Bill. In my view, that bill is the most dangerous piece of legislation passed in the modern history of the United States. It is a vulgar piece of legislation, and anyone who voted for that bill should not be returned to office. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, that bill gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%, $900 billion in tax breaks for large, profitable corporations. Now that is vulgar, but what is even more vulgar is that in order to pay for those huge tax breaks, they cut Medicaid by $1 trillion and cut the Affordable Care Act, the result being that some 15 million Americans are going to lose the health care that they have, including hundreds of thousands right here in Michigan. So you got one reality people on top, enormously powerful, doing extraordinarily well, controlling the political system, getting huge tax breaks. And then there is another reality. And that reality is that in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world today, 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. Many of you are in families living paycheck to paycheck. And what living paycheck to paycheck is about is every day undergoing the stress of wondering how you're going to feed your kids, pay the rent, go to the doctor if somebody gets sick, and wondering maybe, when you get old, will you be able to have a few bucks in the bank so you can enjoy some kind of security in your old age? And every single day, tens of millions of families are struggling with that stress and with that reality. And you know what that stress does to people? It kills them. Now, what you don't hear much about is that in America today, despite the fact that we are the wealthiest country on earth, our life expectancy, how long we live, is 4 years on average shorter than in other wealthy countries around the world. That is a shame. But I'll tell you what is even more shameful, and you don't know this because you never hear about it. If you are working class in this country, you will live 7 years shorter lives than the wealthy. In other words, the stress that the working class and lower income Americans are dealing with now, it's not just that they don't have a fancy house or a fancy car or they go out to big restaurants. Who cares? What is going on is that stress is actually killing people all across this country who are struggling to survive. And in the richest country on earth, that should not be happening. So our job, it seems to me, is to do what the American people want us to do. And that is to take on Trump every step of the way. But we have got to do more than that. What we need to have, which we don't have, and certainly Republicans don't have it, as they move lockstep into authoritarianism, and the Democrats don't have it because they are also controlled by big money. What we need is a vision for America that works for working people, not just the 1%. The point that I want to make, when I make this over and over again, I hope I drum it into people's brains, is in this country, the richest country on earth, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. Now, if we were sitting in a poor country, if you're in Haiti, in a poor country, and I would tell you all the things that I think should happen, people say, Bernie, we can't do it. We're a poor country. We are not a poor country. And it's time we started thinking big, not small. So when politicians come before you and they tell you all the things that we can't do, you tell them that in fact we can, and in fact many of the things I'm going to be talking about are being done all over the world. How many of you know that there is only one major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a human right? You're living in it. Now think about it. In this country where we have so many brilliant people, so much wealth, how in God's name do we spend more than twice as much per capita on health care as the people in other countries, and yet 85 million are uninsured or underinsured? And by the way, one of the reasons you've got to elect Abdul is he wrote a book on that subject. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. And don't let anybody tell you that we cannot do it. If other countries can do it, we can do it. And in this case, sometimes things cost money. In this case, providing health care to all will not cost any more money than we're already spending, because we're spending an enormous amount of money. All right? The issue here is deciding whether we have a health care system that guarantees health care to all people, or that we continue a system whose function is to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. That's the choice we have to make. And let me give you another area. Well, I would suggest to think big, but it's really not big. Everybody in this room knows, and we're here in a major university, great university, that we live in a competitive global economy, right? The future is not ours unless we have the best educated workforce in the world. Democracy does not thrive unless you have a well-educated public and critical thinking. All over the world, major countries understand that when they look to their future, they're looking to their kids, their young people. And I get a little bit tired of seeing politicians standing in front of the flag telling their constituents how much they love America. Well, if you love America, you love the children in America. And that means you do not have or allow to continue in this country having the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. Every child psychologist in the world will tell you that 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development intellectually and emotionally. So if that is a reality, why do we have a broken and dysfunctional and unaffordable child care system? Why are child care workers in some cases paid lower than McDonald's workers? Why do we have an education system where in my state, in rural areas, and this is true all over the country, starting teachers, often with student debt, start off at salaries of $40,000, $42,000 a year? Why is it? Why is it? And this is really quite amazing. 60 or 70 years ago in America, believe it or not, major colleges and universities were tuition free. Do you all know that? University of California, City University of New York, tuition free. How in hell's name have we reverted over 60 or 70 years to a situation where kids are graduating college $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in debt? We desperately need doctors and nurses and dentists. Do you know what doctors are graduating medical school at? Anyone know? $500,000 in debt. And that is why, among other things, I brought forth legislation that would make medical school and nursing school and dental school tuition free. But in addition to that, as some of you may know, the oligarchs want it all. And among other things, they want to destroy public education in America and privatize it. Our job is to strengthen public education. And one of the ways you do that is by paying our teachers a living wage at least $60,000 a year. I want the best and the brightest. I want motivated young people to say, you know what? I dream and would love to become a teacher. Because I believe in the importance of educating our children. I want education to be prioritized in this country, to be appreciated in this country. Trump and his friends want to destroy higher education. I want to make public colleges and universities tuition free. So if you look at the system right now in terms of how it is working for working families, healthcare system clearly broken. Educational system, childcare dysfunctional, kids going in debt to get a higher education, public schools struggling with inadequate resources. Then take a look at another basic necessity of life. So you got healthcare as a basic necessity, education, I think, is a basic necessity, housing is a basic necessity. So you got a healthcare system is broken, an education system is broken, and you got a housing system which is totally broken. In America today, again, you know, one of the things we get used to these things, but there are some 800,000 Americans now who are homeless, including a number of people who are actually working. They're going to their jobs and they're sleeping in their cars or God knows where in a shelter. All right? On top of that, you got some 20 million households who are spending at least 50% of their limited incomes on housing. Got it? So if you're spending 50% of your income on housing, what the hell do you have left over, right? Nothing. All right. So maybe, just maybe, instead of providing the military with $1 trillion a year, maybe we build 5 million units of low-income and affordable housing. And when we talk about workers in America, let's understand that we have millions of workers who are working for starvation wages. And one of the great embarrassments in Washington right now is that we have not raised that minimum wage for a very long time. It stands, if you can believe it, at $7.25 an hour. Time now is to say that if you work 40 hours a week in America, you're not living in poverty. Raise that federal minimum wage to at least $17 an hour. Millions of Americans want to join unions today. And I know Michigan is one of the great union states and great union history right here. But right now, many workers who would like to join unions cannot do that because of the illegal behavior of their corporate bosses. That's why we've got to pass the PRO Act to punish companies that act illegally when workers are trying to form unions. There are a tiny handful of countries in the world that do not guarantee paid family and medical leave. We are one of them. Every worker in this country should not have to make the choice of staying home with a sick kid or not going to work and getting fired. All right? One of the things that I learned as the former chairman of the Health, Education, and Labor Committee is that in America today, it's not just that we treat our children shamefully, we treat our seniors shamefully as well. You know, and as a society where seniors are the people who built the economy, defended us in war, they are our parents, they're our grandparents. You don't just shuffle them off to some nursing home. What we have got to do is create a system which treats the elderly in their retirement years with the respect and the dignity they have earned. So what does that mean? What does it mean? It means right now 22% of seniors are trying to survive, I don't know how they do it, on $15,000 a year. Got it? You got half of seniors trying to get by on $30,000 a year or less. And then you got some Republicans out there who are saying, well, you know, we should cut Social Security. Well, I've got a very different idea. No, we're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security. And we're going to do that by lifting the cap on taxable income. Right now, you make $10 million a year, you make $186,000, you pay the same amount into Social Security. Lift that cap, we can significantly increase benefits and extend the solvency of Social Security for decades. So I say all of these things, and there's much more. Clearly, climate remains a huge issue. You got a president of the United States who insanely thinks that climate change is a hoax. You and I know that it is an existential threat to our planet. And you and I know that we can create millions of good-paying jobs transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, working with countries all over the world. Now, I say all of these things, and there's a lot more I haven't gone over. But the main point that I want to make to you, two main points. Number one, everything that I have told you is not radical. Now, people out there, our critics, the Republicans, some Democrats, well, you know, this is really radical stuff. It's not part of mainstream. It's communism, whatever it may be. But what I want you to know is, A, much of what I'm talking about already exists in other countries around the world. And number two, that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, this is all achievable. We can do these things. But it is not just domestic issues that we've got to focus on. We have to take a very hard look at what we are doing in terms of foreign policy. I am proud to tell you that I have led the effort in the United States Senate to end all military aid to the Netanyahu government in Israel. This is one clear example where Washington, is way out of touch with where the American people are. This is clearly a moral issue. I mean, this would be a horror under any circumstances. Over 60,000 dead, 140,000 wounded, mostly elderly, women, children. 18,000 kids are killed. And now, starvation of children. It is criminal. Of course it's criminal. The issue here is not only that it is bad, we are paying for the starvation of children in Gaza. And I will tell you, this is not what the Democrats want, not what at the base. Now, I've gone all over the country, and the response I get is exactly what I am hearing from you. The American people do not want their taxpayer dollars going to starve or bomb children of schools. And as a result of grassroots activism, we are beginning to turn the tide. A few years ago, people proudly said, oh, I support AIPAC. AIPAC is funding me. People are not saying that anymore. You know why? Because AIPAC is, to a large degree, precisely behind the refusal of the Congress to act morally and responsibly. You take a hard look at any candidate who's taken AIPAC money, and you ask them whether or not they're going to stand with the children in Gaza or with big money interest here in the United States. Artificial intelligence and robotics are going to transform our economy and the world. The oligarchs are currently spending hundreds of billions of dollars in AI and robotics. Now, let me ask you a question. I want an honest answer. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. How many people think, as presently constituted, AI and robotics will improve life for ordinary people? How many people think that it will hurt ordinary people? It's interesting. That is the response. That's the response I've been getting in a lot of places. Here's what we should know. In 50 years ago or so, with the development of all kinds of new technology, including cell phones, including computers, including flat-screen TVs, and all of this stuff, you would think, this is an interesting point, you would think that the American people say, wow, life is getting better. All right, I'm going to ask you another question. Pew Research, they're quite a reputable research company. They did a poll a few years ago. And this is the question they asked the American people. I'm going to ask it you. And again, don't tell me what I want to hear. The question was, do you believe that somebody in your position, somebody whose life is like yours, middle class, lower, upper class, whatever you may be, do you think life was better 50 years ago for that person, or life is better today? Well, what do you guys think? Was life better 50 years ago or life better? Raise your hand if you think life was better, is better today. Okay. Raise your hand if you think life was better 50 years ago. Okay, well, that's right. That's a good point. That is a very good point. So what we have, here's the point. Clearly, from our perspective, there have been positive changes. 50 years ago, you didn't have women governors. You didn't have women representation in Congress. You didn't have women doing all kinds of jobs. We still had racism rampant in the United States. Gay rights was at a very low level. So in those areas, life is in fact better. If you're black today, you can go out and get a job that you couldn't have gotten 50 years ago. If you're a woman, you can get a job you could not have gotten. Life is better. But on the other hand, there is a reason why 60% of the people in that poll said, no, I think life might have been better 50 years ago. And that has to do with sense of community, the sense that we are losing something, the sense that what we need out of human life is just human beings, the companionship, the love, the community that we need to thrive, that our kids need to thrive. We are losing that. And I worry very, very much. There's an expression you are all familiar with, that is, the operation was a success, but the patient died. Right? You all familiar with that? And that's what I fear. The system today is a great success. We got all kinds of technology. You can do all kinds of great things. Unfortunately, it ain't working for ordinary people. So our job is to say to the oligarchs, as we take them on and defeat them, that you cannot determine our future for us. And right now in AI, as some of you know, to produce AI requires an enormous, unbelievable amount of water and electricity and energy. So people's electric bills are going to go up to pay for AI, and they go out and get a job, and it's not going to be there. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So we're looking at environmental issues in terms of AI. You're looking at the loss of jobs, and I worry very, very much about kids in schools and critical thinking, and whether or not kids will be learning how to use their minds. All right, let me just conclude for the third time. This is my final and absolute conclusion. These are tough times for the country. At the very least, we need to elect strong members to Congress who have the guts to stand up for working people, stand up for decency, and are prepared to take on the oligarchy. Abdul El-Sayed is one of those people. Please send them to Washington. Thank you very much.